Hello and welcome to Journeys and Journals. Today's show is special in a special way. It's all about when things go different. And this show is indeed about the walk I'm walking and the walk I'm not walking alone. It has been, here we are, 2005, springtime. The flowers are absolutely beautiful. The arrangement is made by my sister-in-law, Robin Martin, in the vase that was from Mother and Father's wedding. And, I'm surrounded by history. I've got the lace cloths and you may be wondering about the hat. It's vintage too. Friend Mary May has stored her hats with me, and when I thought about how to share with you the story that's real, personal, and present news, I thought, well, I'll put on one of Mary May's hats and then we'll share. It was about 6 months ago, I guess, that I started having some health problems. And they went looking. What could it be? I'd say they looked at everything from the kidney stones and bladder and every part of me except my gizzard, and they missed that one. That's what my dad used to call anything that was kind of bugging you. Well, along they came with one more test called a CAT scan, and they said, that looks suspicious. Right in the middle of me was a mass. And they said, we'll run a PET scan. These names are kind of familiar to me now, but right at first it sounded more like a zoo of pets and cats. And I thought, what's this going to mean to me and the rest of my life? I didn't have a clue. How do you deal with things that go different? They called it lymphoma, and the diagnosis was stage 3, which means worse than 2 and worse than 1, and it had metastasized to my neck. And so I was scared, I'll be honest with you. Then we heard about a research program that was going on in Portland, that they'd accept lymphoma people into a new research scheme that would not try to kill you and the cancer at the same time. But I decided I'd like that. It was something that would work for the future, and I could maybe help, the kids coming along 20, 30 years along the line. My husband, Doug Beck, was super strong. He was so supportive, and he said, I'll go. So twice we went to Portland to the Health Science Center up there, and got home pretty excited about doing this new research program, only to get that phone call that said, you're not accepted. Well, hopes kind of spun downward and downward. And Doug's been a real trooper, but I'd like you to meet him. Welcome on set, Doug Beck.
Hey, babe.
I thank you so much. Now, you've done something outrageous for me.
That's so true.
When I lost my hair, you said,
I'm gonna go lose mine too.
Why? Why would you do such a thing?
Well, I've been hanging around you for 46 years now, and I just wanted to show you that the level of support that you have is substantial.
And so I still have a little bit of mine, and they didn't shave it off or anything. It doesn't fall out, but it's baby fine. This guy's got, I said, when they shaved it off at the barber shop, what was it like?
It was a load off my mind.
He also said there wasn't a lot down on the floor.
No.
But let's talk a little bit about what my diagnosis has meant to you and why you've been so incredibly supportive.
Well, it's one of these things that you gather around all the forces you can and you go after it hammer and tongs. You just don't let it, lay there and be miserable about things. You pick yourself up and you go do what you have to do. And that's what you've done, and I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. You said something, was incredibly supportive of me about, even before we got the real diagnosis. You said 6 months ago. So why don't you fill us in what happened 6 months before my January diagnosis, about August of 2004?
Well, I had a major heart attack and a quintuple bypass. You supported me just right down to the nth degree. And you would just do some payback, that's all.
I heard him say that, and I just, I guess if you did, I probably radiated sunshine when I heard that. You've probably had people around you who have been supportive. It is incredible, just incredible, when you're down to have somebody say, here's a hand, come on up. Now, Doug and his family, his sister-in-law and brother-in-law, sister?
Sister and brother.
And brother-in-law all came
yes.
to support him. Well, when it happened to me,
my sister and her husband came flying up from, didn't fly, they drove up from Southern California.
And my sister came from the Bay Area, and my brother came from Grants Pass.
Yes.
And with this disease, you don't really have a great appetite, and you do have a lot of weight loss. That part is okay, but the loss of appetite, Robin's a cooking school instructor, and also she is a gourmet cook. So I get these little meals. I don't feel a whole lot like cooking, but
true.
But it's been incredible. Spaghetti, lasagna, Mexican food, chocolate, out. I mean, as if you never, ever wanted to taste them again. When I was talking to the forgot their names right now. These people, and they said, does it always happen that you have an unusual taste in your mouth when you're on chemo? I don't know. For me, it has been a little bit that way, but they were telling me that their friend had nothing tastes good. Now, I find potatoes to be very tasty.
Yes, you certainly do, and it's a challenge to come up with things to tempt your appetite every now and then. I work at it.
Yeah, he's been a real trooper. The energy level. What Doug would like for me to sit on the couch or take long naps. So I asked my doctor, Dr. Susan Kohler, what she would recommend. Now, Doug's been with me in every one of my treatments. I mean, every one of my office visits and everything. And what did Dr. Kohler say?
Well, even if I didn't want you to do it, I'd have to tie you down.
No, that wasn't what I was hoping you'd say. That if you felt up to it.
Yeah.
Then we got an article in the most recent National Geographic. Doug, being this incredible reader, opened it right up, and it said,
Well, the current issue of the National Geographic has a sizable article about toxics. And this gentleman had been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Same like me.
Same as hers, and was getting the same treatment. What they call a CHOP and rituximab regimen. And he just sailed through it. He says his hair came out, but he just kept right on working.
He was a professor in
Something like that,
university and kept up with his classes and did what he needed to do.
And he'd go into the treatment area, and there'd be someone right next to him the same age as he was, same build, everything, and the guy was just flattened by it. And it all depends upon how well the enzymes of your body assist you in metabolizing the toxics that you've been given. And apparently your enzymes is just running strong.
Well, when I asked, because Doug is very cautious and he is also trying to be super, what's the word I want? Conservative about my whole treatment. I said, well, doctor, if I fly, should I wear a mask? Not necessary. If I do this, should I? This was when I got the good news that almost anything that I felt up to doing, I could do. Well, that's enough about me. Let's talk about you, because that's a lot more interesting.
No.
You came to Southern Oregon because?
Well, I retired, and you told me that, you know, I've chased you around for 30 years, it's time to go home.
That's kind of, his work took him to Seattle and then to the Bay Area, and we had bought a piece of dirt down here, $25 a month, and had always dreamed that one day we'd come back and call this home again, because I came here in 1938 and you came here in
1943.
See, you could have rocked a little baby Bernie. But what brought your family to Southern Oregon?
Well, that was still in kind of the pits of the Depression, and there was a job here that my father was offered, and he decided this would be a really great place to raise kids, and so here we came.
Depression had been very hard on your family for one reason. Location.
Yeah, I came from Fall River County, South Dakota, and there really isn't a lot there.
Well, Mount Rushmore.
I don't know that that's in Fall River County, but that's okay.
Well, it's a beautiful green grassy area with rainbirds.
When we lived there, there was no electricity, there was no water, other than what you could pump out of a rather feeble well, and that was all. Now they've got irrigation, they've got rural electrification. They go down 100 feet and you get into an underground river and you got all the water you can pump. It's a tolerable place, except I suppose in the winter when it goes down to 30 below zero.
Oh, I'm so glad to live in God's country out here.
Yes, yes.
This weather, I think, I mean, it's not exactly banana belt, but we certainly have the best. Portland has its blizzard.
Silver thaws.
Silver thaws, and Eugene has its fog, and Redding has its hot weather. But someplace in between, in the whole state of Jefferson, is this hollow of God's hand, I swear.
Yes.
And we have all these little wonderful valleys that unique and wonderful people have called home for generations.
Yes.
Now, your folks, your dad had been in the war effort doing all kinds of things.
Yeah, he worked as a weatherman at the Igloo Ordnance Depot in South Dakota for a while. That's the same place that Tom Brokaw's dad worked.
Ah.
And Then he was offered a job with the Air Warning Service in the Siskiyou National Forest out here. And in those days, they were keeping the lookouts manned 24/7 around here, looking for Japanese airplanes.
When you say manned,
There were people on them.
women and men.
Yep.
In fact, on top of tall buildings in Grants Pass, I've learned, on top of Redwood Hotel, they had a lookout there. Why was it so important to have lookouts?
Well, if somebody's going to drop a bomb on you, it's nice to be able to tell everybody to scramble for it, because here it comes.
And we do know some inside information that your father was privileged to.
Well, yeah, he went to a site over by Brookings where a Jap submarine had shelled an area there and got to see the craters that it had made. And of course, later in the war, they were flying these balloons loaded with incendiaries or high explosive. That's what killed the folks over by Bly, and one of them exploded.
And that was different than what landed here, right?
Yeah.
On our Mount
Yes, Walker Mountain.
Walker Mountain.
Yeah.
What was Walker Mountain? I mean, it's a forested area, and these balloons would be set off in Japan?
They had timers on them that after a certain length of time they would either self-destruct or they would blow up and set something on fire. Fortunately, we had a lot of good rain that year and they didn't do anything.
It was one of those great fortunate things that when it landed, and I heard this from Deb Potts, because it landed on his property that he was logging. Mm-hmm. The man came down from Walker Mountain and said, "Debs, I don't know what it is, but here's this ring." And it still had some of the incendiary devices in it. It was in the tree. And that's out at Pottsville, that big ring. And it's been here on this show when Debs was a regular on guest. What would you tell about Pottsville, Doug?
I'm glad it's there. It gives a place to go on Father's Day. I don't have to worry about it.
What do they do on Father's Day?
Oh, they have this antique tractor show and antique engine show out there, and it's always interesting to see these old engines like we used to have back on the farm in South Dakota, sitting there chugging along, steam coming out of the top of them.
And you make the sound, so I know it's a...
No, I won't make the sound. Sorry.
It does. It's a wonderful place. It's like Knott's Berry Farm, only without the ticket takers and
the good restaurants.
Oh, okay. It is something you won't want to miss. If not this Father's Day, any Father's Day. Debs has donated, I don't know the right word, put it in trust for us, the people, the community. He had always had too many toys, too many antiques, too much stuff. His wife had said, maybe you ought to open a museum, and he did. And it's grown and grown, and fortunately the people who are trustees of it will continue. Thank you to I'm sorry, I just forgot his name.
You had a chemo moment. That's good.
That's been fortunate that Doug's always given me this sort of option here if I don't think of it. Well, on the table is an arrangement that is in the silver bowl from our wedding. Actually, it was a wedding gift to my parents, along with a pair of candlesticks. And when I had Robin do the bouquet, I said, "Oh, it's still beautiful. I want to show it." Usually we don't have fresh flowers, but today's special. And we were celebrating a new baby. Angela White's going to have a little girl. And so we were celebrating it this weekend on a very rainy day. Couldn't have a garden party. So we crowded 50 people into our
little bitty old house.
Our house. We live way out in the country. I call it rural Merlin, but it's down towards Galise, not that far, of course. Galise has meant a lot to us. What's the story?
That's a good place to go have dinner.
Galise has fine dining or casual dining.
Whatever, yeah.
You have choices, but you also have the Galise Carpenter Store.
True. It's a good meeting place.
It's no longer a store, it's like a community hall.
Mm-hmm.
And once a month or every other month they have potlucks. Lucky us. I joined that society, and you learn lots of history. That's how I find some of my guests.
Well, these flowers also help celebrate you getting through the first half of your chemotherapy regimen.
You bet. And
3 down, 3 to go.
They do smell good. By the time this is shown, I'll probably be sailing and done, because it takes a while to get it edited and all that. I have no fear for the future now, but I'll tell you folks, that first, Doug didn't have a chance to get used to the fact that he was going to have bypass surgery.
They just hauled me in and sliced me open like a side of beef and went at it.
Yeah, one ambulance ride and the rest is history.
Yeah. You had a chance to worry about it, though. Now, you're getting used to the idea. I think you're happier with it.
I am happier with it, and you can't imagine how many people say, I know someone who is going through the same thing.
Well, there are 53,000 cases of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosed every year in the world. So it's going around. Now, the thing is that I know of at least 2 phase 3 studies of vaccines that are against this particular brand of lymphoma that ultimately I think are going to be approved, and you'll be able to go get some shots from those and clean it all out of your system completely and never have to worry about it.
That's what I was hoping to get from the Portland, Oregon Health Science. I was hoping for that news. I wanted to short circuit this.
Yep.
Just didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Some days you chase the tiger, some days the tiger chases you.
And one of the doctors said to me, he said, well, when it comes back, then they had to do a test with a needle
biopsy, yeah,
to get this. And he said, well, when it comes back, then we could.
Yeah. The best you can hope for right now is to this particular brand of non-Hodgkin's that you have invariably recurs after, you can get it into remission, but it will come back. And it's going to be slightly more chemotherapy resistant, but hopefully by then we will get the vaccine and they will be able to clean it out of you and you won't have it to worry about again.
And what if this had happened to me 15 years ago?
You'd be gone by now.
And what is happening? I even talked to Dr. T. Colin Campbell, who's written a lot about cancer and the environment and cancer and what we can do to safeguard our health. He said, with lymphoma, we don't really know a lot. It may be what you've breathed, ingested, what you cleaned the showers with 20 years ago. It just lowers your immune system. And here we are, faced with a diagnosis we'd rather not have.
That's for sure.
What do you do with lemon when you're handed a bag of lemons.
You don't drop them.
If you're real lucky,
You make lemonade.
you make lemonade.
Yes.
I'm going to encourage you folks, when you get a bag of lemons, I like lemon pie real well too.
My heart-healthy diet, I don't know what would withstand lemon meringue pie.
Yeah, and right now my taste buds wouldn't take it either.
Wouldn't come through it.
But when you start thinking about all the positive good, all the things that you can and do for yourself. One of the things that when I'm in this pet program,
PET scan?
they use a dye that's radioactive.
Yes.
What do you suppose they indicate? Drink plenty of water, and it'll clear it out of your system.
Just don't get your wristwatch too close to you because it glows.
But it is true. You know, water is probably water inside and water bathing and water, well, even the rain of Oregon.
Yes.
It's a great blessing. Otherwise, we wouldn't have spring flowers.
We had spring flowers this year in abundance.
In abundance. Doug, thank you for being so willing to support me and so willing to share your story about bypass and when things really went different. This is not the first time that you and I have hit a bump. Our daughter died in a car wreck I had. My mother's death was very tragic. And
You had a stroke 18 months after we got married.
yeah, I sure did. And there I was. We're together 46 years.
Yep.
Thank you very much. And thanks for being my guest here on Journeys and Journals. Folks, thanks for listening to our real story. This is who we are. No hair.
No hair.
He just did it to support me,
Yes.
though. I thank you for tuning in to Better Life Television. I'm Bernie Martin Beck saying bye for now.